Rolling Stones, I Can't Get No Satisfaction. BBC Radio Oxford, 20 minutes to 4. Adam Ball is with you from 4. Then there's Fleur Osterjack on BBC Radio Oxford. So a great lot of radio ahead for you today. Now, today is also World Mental Health Day. And obviously every day is a chance for us to look after our minds and our bodies. But maybe today is the day that you reach out for help or you offer support. Now, you will know my next guest, the voice of Conor McReynolds. He and we discuss local comedy on my show every Friday. We've done it for over a year, and Conor is also part of the shiny new sound of evenings here on BBC Radio Oxford, and he's a great champion of local comedy. He also grows a moustache every November for Men's Health, and he's a community ambassador for Movember. So Conor, hello, my lovely.
Hello.
I was going to say, is your top lip itching, but you have a lovely...
Yes, it's more my chin is kind of quivering because it has that familiar feeling that it's had for the last 9 years. It knows something is about to happen to it. Yeah. It's the worst time of year to remove my beard, honestly. It just gets so cold. It's dreadful.
Now, Conor, tell us about your relationship with your mental health.
Yeah. Well, it's complex. Everybody's mental health is complex, really. And I'm in many respects no different to kind of 1 in 6 people in the country. But I was diagnosed with depression, I think it was 5 years ago. I think 5 or 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. But I'd been unwell for a little while before then. I know that. But I didn't have the context of a label. I didn't know what it was. So for a very long time, I was so unhappy, so miserable. I felt very alone, irritable. It was affecting my sleep and that kind of thing. And it was really bad. But because I didn't know I was depressed, the only thing I had to kind of attribute it all to was my relationship. My lovely partner, Kirsty, and I, at that stage, had been together for about 9-10 years. And I assumed, very incorrectly, that the cause of my unhappiness was our relationship. Mm. We were due to be married, actually, about 4 or 5 years ago. And a series of things happened, including a kind of breakdown on my part. And I ended our relationship and I moved out of our home because I thought our relationship was making me unhappy and that we would both be happier apart. And so I moved out. The wedding was cancelled and I waited for this inevitable upturn in my mental and emotional health, thinking I'll be sad for a while, of course, and then we'll both begin to feel better and move on with our lives. And that just never happened. And it wasn't until Kirsty came back to me saying that someone else she'd spoken to said, I think Conor may be depressed. Kirsty told me this. And that was the first time I kind of thought, is that a thing? Is that what's going on with me? So I went and spoke to my doctor, and that was a bit of a weird one because I'm not sure if all GPs are necessarily given all the tools to effectively deal with people coming in and talking about mental health. Doctors are miracle workers, and they're brilliant people, of course. Mm. But I think there's still a lot more that, in terms of training, that could happen to help them deal with people coming in. But yeah, the doctor basically said to me, if you say you're depressed, I'll diagnose it. And I kind of thought, well, that's not how it works. If I came in and said, doctor, I've definitely got the mumps, he wouldn't say, well, I'll take your word for it.
Yes.
But with mental illness, sometimes it's that kind of, because it's, I guess to use a common term, it's the invisible illness.
Yeah.
So I was sent away to do this questionnaire thing, and basically I had to come back. It was kind of 1 for very strongly agree, 2 for mildly agree, that kind of thing. And it would give you a kind of a rating. And I don't want to brag, but I got a very high score. Okay. So I was very unwell. And so that's when the doctor started along the lines of giving me antidepressants and diagnosing those. And I very kind of naively, about a few years back, thought Prozac was kind of the only one. It was the only one I'd really grown up knowing about. So I thought when you're unhappy, you're given happy pills and then you feel happy.
Yes.
And that is not the case at all. So I was given these pills and I wasn't having a great time with them. I just didn't notice a kind of any positive benefits. So a few months later, I had to change to another one. And again, just same thing. I wasn't feeling what the supposed benefits of the pills were. by that time, I was on a very strong dosage of those. And so when I said to the doctor, I want to change over to another, the doctor explained that we would have to kind of slowly wean off these ones, have a period where my body's having nothing going on in it, then start the new ones. And it was during that time that the kind of most formative moment of my my journey with mental illness was my chemical balance was just so skew with, and everything was off, and it was affecting how I felt, how I thought, and I reached a point where I didn't think I could go on. And on the 10th of July 2016, I decided to end my life. And I went into my bathroom and I was sure I wasn't coming out. And the thought that kept me alive, I did through my work with Movember, I did a newspaper article recently that's coming out, I think next week in the Times. And it was the first time I'd said this publicly. And it's the reason why I'm always going on about my cats and how much I love them. Part of it is because when I went into that bathroom, I was going to do what I was going to do. And I thought to myself, Kirsty's going to find me. And she's going to be so upset she's not going to feed my cats.
Gosh.
And it was that little thought, that little moment of doubt that made me just collapse and obviously didn't do anything. And half an hour later, Kirsty was making me tea and toast on the sofa and I was watching a football match.
Gosh.
And the closer I get, we've been talking on your show every Friday, the closer I get to my wedding in 2 weeks and 1 day, not that I'm thinking about it much, the closer I get to it, the more I think of that night and how if one little thing had changed, that wouldn't be happening. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have these lovely conversations with you. And that was the thing that made me more frightened than I've ever been of anything. And luckily I found the right antidepressant, and here we are just over 3 years later. And I am so lucky that I get to work with the Movember Foundation as one of their community ambassadors. It's a volunteer position. And I get to go and speak to groups of people about mental health and suicide prevention, about how to look after ourselves and have healthier relationships with ourselves, how to look out for the people in your lives and make sure that they're okay. And if you ever notice that someone in your life just isn't quite right, that the most important thing you can do is talk to them and just check in with them. And there's a great campaign, I can't remember which charity it is, but their thing is ask twice. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. But really, are you okay? And that will help. That really will help. I've been very, very lucky that I've always been quite an emotional person, always quite an open person, and I've always felt free to talk about things. I've never necessarily shied away from being vulnerable or emotional or open, but that is a kind of a stigma that a lot of men feel, that they have to be strong and silent and that kind of thing. And that's really prohibitive. And the state of men's mental health is, it's just dreadful. Suicide is the biggest killer of men in the UK under the age of 49, which is crazy. It's just crazy. It just should not be the case. And unfortunately, mental health services really aren't up to scratch, which is why it's so vital that we support groups like the Samaritans, like Oxfordshire Mind, like CAM. I'm forgetting lots of them, but any great mental health charity or emotional health charity, so invaluable, because the NHS is under so much strain. They can't always do what they need to do to help people, particularly people who are experiencing suicidal thoughts. It's urgent. And often in the NHS, you're told you can access talking therapies in 6 months or 7 months, and it's not quick enough. And I was so fortunate that I, with the help of my parents, was able to access private psychotherapy, and a combination of talking regularly to someone and the antidepressants that finally started to help me and work, and the ones that I'm still on now. Those two things were invaluable in keeping me here. I'm still here in large part because of those and the people in my life who have supported me so much. And it's gross to me to think of the number of people in the 3 years since I thought about ending my life who will have taken their own because they couldn't get access to the help they need. It should never, ever be the case that there isn't that. And that's why those charities are so great and so important. And I feel very, very lucky to be able to work with a charity like Movember, and, you know, indirectly through the work with the amazing guys at Jericho Comedy that we do, because they raise vital money for Oxfordshire Mind, who help so many people. So yeah, I feel very, very lucky to still be here, and now hopefully be able to help people and try to encourage a culture where people can talk and feel that it's okay to talk about their own health, ask people about their health, and facilitate a culture where it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman or whatever gender, however you identify, whatever age you are, whoever you are, you should be able to say to someone, this is how I'm feeling and I need help. And I know from my experience that when I said that to anyone, literally nobody in my life let me down. Not a single person. I worried with some people that maybe I would get that kind of, oh, man up, oh, well, what have you got to be depressed about, whatever. Nothing like that happened. And it's very easy for us to tell ourselves, people won't understand, people won't respond in the way that I need them to. That is not the case. That was never the case with me. Everyone was amazing. And if you are listening to this and you know someone who you think isn't being themselves, or if you're not feeling great, talk to them and encourage them to talk to you, because people, the one thing that all of this has helped me, the world isn't always a nice place to be in when you're not well and when you're depressed or whatever your mental illness is. The world can be a very difficult place to be in, but people are fundamentally good. People really have good hearts and they want to help and they want to be there for you. And that's what I find, and I'm very, very lucky. And hopefully I can be that for some other people as well.
Oh, Conor, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. And you're right, it's okay not to be okay.
Really is.
It really is.
Really is.
And you are going to continue this conversation tonight.
Yes.
Tell us about your show
I'm
tonight.
I'm very excited. My show, first of all, I should say it's really fun, this show.
Well, this is going back to our comedy. This is what we say all the time. And there may be a link between comedy and mental health, which we sadly don't have time to explore. I'm sure we will at some point, and maybe you will over your shows. But we often say, don't we?
Yeah.
Oh, this thing I'm about to tell you sounds really
grim,
tough,
but
it's really funny.
And luckily my show is going to be loads of fun. I've got Dan Knowles, who's the CEO of Oxfordshire Mind. He's a great supporter of the local comedy scene as well. The show's called The Dinner Party. I'm going to be asking Dan to describe his dream dinner party, what guests he would invite, what music he would play, what he would cook. But we'll also talk a lot about the great work that Oxfordshire Mind do, and we'll talk about the culture in which we all kind of have to adapt and make sure that everybody's okay.
Yes, we'll all muddle through together.
Yes, we really will.
Keep calm, have tea.
Tea is vital. Tea is so important, the most important liquid in the world.
Yes, and we both share a love of cats as well. Conor, it's been a real honour to hear you talk. Thank you so much. And we'll speak to you tomorrow on my show.
Yeah,
as well.
Looking forward to that.
Brilliant. Conor McReynolds, thank you, my love.
Thank you.